welcome to CTD Interviews, a series of meetings with relevant professionals of the ELT and business sector to talk about 21st century skills, coaching, development, and training in education. Today, we are going to talk about storytelling to enhance 21st century skills with our wonderful guest speaker, David Heathfield. Thank you, David, for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Palmina, and to talk about my favourite subject.
Yes. David, we met a few years ago at an Isley DOS conference. The first time I met you, it was during a very lovely dinner in a small fish restaurant by the seaside. And you entered the dining room and you started telling us a story. And we were in, I think we were in Civitavecchia, but after your first few words, we were in a completely different country. Listening to you, you were so charming. So, David, when did you become a storyteller and why?
Oh, that's a lovely question. I just got to start by talking about that moment because you said within a few words you were there in the story, and I have a slightly different memory, and I found that storytelling a challenge because we were in a busy restaurant with a lot of teachers who didn't know what to expect, and I was full of doubt, and I was thinking, can I gain their attention? Will they listen to me? These are Italian teachers, and well, not only Italian, but they love their food. Will they be paying attention? And everybody started listening, and I said, now I feel at home because everybody was with me. It was a lovely moment.
Yes.
And a lovely conference, a very special conference. I started storytelling in my teaching about 25 years ago. And at the time, I was getting very interested in creativity in my language teaching work. So I was part of a theatre group, doing community theatre in the local area near my home in Exeter in Devon. I was bringing a lot of ideas from theatre and drama into my teaching. And I had just started doing storytelling workshops I did a workshop with a friend of mine, Dr. Jeff Fox. And I thought, this is very suitable for me. This fits me. I feel comfortable. A few years before, I played the character of Robin Hood in a live outdoor theatre. And in that role, it was very interactive theatre, like street theatre. And in the role of Robin Hood, I also told stories to the audience. And I just felt this is very nice to have this interaction with the audience. And then the same with my English learning students. And somehow I noticed that their listening had a different quality. They were listening totally to the story with their bodies, minds, and hearts, and they were open. Yeah. So that encouraged me to continue. And so I've done I became a professional storyteller in 2004. And since then, I've done professional storytelling. I say professional, it's just a passion that I get paid for. But I do storytelling with children, with teenagers, with adults, with people with learning difficulties, people who are learning English, people in the UK who, people from all different backgrounds. But my main work is involved in intercultural sharing, meeting people from around the world, learning stories and celebrating diversity, which is incredibly important in this moment.
Yeah, yes. David, I was first introduced to storytelling during my coaching course. I'm a professional coach, and storytelling is very important because it helps the coachee to reflect, to see beyond the daily life routine or the issue of the moment. Then I attended your course, the CREST course, because I thought, okay, storytelling is important, but you have to know the technique, how to tell a story. And I would like to ask you, why storytelling can be crucial in the language classroom. I mean, we said at the beginning it can enhance 21st century skills. So tell us more about it, how storytelling and 21st century skills are related.
That's a very good question. Storytelling is the most ancient form of education. It comes way before we had schools and teachers. We learn from our elders. And like I said, it makes us open. So it makes us creative. We think creatively when we're engaged in telling a story and when we're listening to a story. We're creative as an individual and we're creative in the community of people we're sharing the story with. So it works a lot with the imagination, and stories show us what is possible, how life could be different and how life could be better. So usually traditional folk tales, the tales that I love to tell from all around the world, they have wisdom in them. And sometimes the wisdom is very clear, but very often it's a question of the interpretation of the listener. So what I bring to the story and what I need from the story is what I find in the story. So we might find that different listeners learn different things. So it's really important to think about it as a creative process. When it comes to critical thinking, well, one of the most important things is for people to notice that there isn't one right way of interpreting a situation, that we can share our understanding of the story with our students, but students can learn from each other and they can have real insight into other people's perceptions and other people's ways of learning and interpreting the story. And that can be very mind-opening. So it's all about collaboration as well.
Yes.
I've noticed, for example, that when students realize that another person has understood something different but interesting in a story, that it doesn't, instead of saying, well, you understood it differently from me, we can encourage them to say, you learned it in another way from me, and how interesting that you have another perspective on what the moral lesson of this story is, or how this story relates to my own personal circumstances, or a national crisis, or a global situation. So it's you know, when we talk about 21st century skills, we look at the learning skills criteria. It covers everything. Communication is everything, and storytelling is pure communication. It's face to face. And these days it's changing because, well, for me, I didn't even realize a year ago how much storytelling would be happening online, and how it opens up the world, and how it's possible to convey a story well through the webcam.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we had our course online, and it was fantastic. There were other colleagues from, I cannot remember their countries, but they came from all over the world. And it was fantastic the way we approached each story you told us and how we could exploit it. So it's great.
It was great to have you on the course, Palmina. You're right. I've had people on my courses from Brazil, from Nepal, from China, from India, and all across Europe. But it's been one of the most important things for people doing the course, creative and engaging storytelling for teachers, has been teachers learning together from each other across cultures.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of teachers from Palestine as well, where I work with the HandsOn Project.
And I think that you also bring a lot of your personal story when dealing with storytelling. I can remember about a few times during the course that the atmosphere completely changed when one of us had a memory of something that happened in our life. And I think that this can be very useful also for our teenager students. Sometimes our teenager students are a bit, I would say, close, or maybe they keep their feelings in a more intimate way, while storytelling can help them expressing their feelings and emotions. There's nothing wrong when you tell a story. So
that's true. That's true. And I often find that a simple short folk tale will open up a personal story. It's a way to begin to open up. And teenagers, if you say, well, tell us about some issue, I've got nothing to say. But if you start with a simple wisdom tale, and then we think, well, what does that remind you of? What does that make you think of?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, I mean, there's a lovely story that I've been telling recently called The Cracked Pot. And it's a very important story to be telling at this moment of change in the world, where people are really isolated, sometimes feeling very uncertain, often feeling that, am I doing the right thing? And can I tell you this story?
Oh, yes.
And it's a wonderful story because afterwards, Palmini, you know, people listening at home, I'm sure you'll think that story reminds me or makes me think of a situation in my own life. So this story is originally, well, it's told in China and India. There was a girl and her job was to carry water. She carried water in 2 pots. She filled the pots at the stream and carried the 2 pots on a yoke across her shoulders every day. They were heavy. She carried them up the mountain path all the way to the great house where she worked. Every day she carried the 2 pots of water. Now, one of the pots was complete and whole, but the other pot had a crack and the water dripped from the pot. One day when they reached the great house, the whole complete pot said, I am full of water, but you are half empty. I know, said the cracked pot. I am useless. I am no good. The cracked pot was so sad. The next day, when the girl was filling the 2 pots at the stream, the cracked pot spoke to her. Why don't you throw me away? I am broken, useless. I'm no good to you. And the water carrier said, you are beautiful. Next time, when I'm carrying you up the mountain, look around you. Well, she carried the 2 pots full of water up the mountain, but when they reached the house, the complete pot spoke again. You are useless. You're half empty. I am full. It's true. And the cracked pot said to the girl, why don't you throw me away? Didn't you see, said the water carrier. Didn't you see all of the flowers? Yes, said the cracked pot. But the cracked pot didn't understand. The next day, when she was filling the 2 pots at the stream, the cracked pot spoke to her again. Please, throw me away. I'm useless. You saw the flowers, didn't you? When I carry you today up the path, see where the flowers are growing. They are growing on the side of the path where I carry you. The water drips from your crack, and the flowers grow so beautiful and bright and colourful. Every day, I go and pick flowers, and I fill the great house with your beauty, the beauty because of you. The cracked pot looked as she carried the 2 pots up the mountain, and when they reached the house, the whole complete pot said nothing. But the cracked pot said, I am still half full. And because of me, there are beautiful flowers growing up the mountain path. I bring beauty. I am good. I am a cracked pot, and I am useful.
Oh, David, this is a wonderful story. This is a wonderful story. Thank you, David, for having shared this with us.
I think for me, this story is a story that speaks to all of us, because
Yeah.
all of us feel sometimes that I am a cracked pot.
Yes, yes, yeah. But even while I was listening to you, I was thinking this story can give our students a stronger sense of who we really are. Sometimes we feel we are weak, but at the same time we are strong. I mean, we all have weaknesses and strengths, and here we are focusing on the strength, on something that you can give, something that you can share with other people. So rather than on the weaknesses, but on the strength. And this is something that can help a lot in this time, but it can help a lot with
You
our.
can classify this, if you like, as a healing story.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing this, David. Thank you so much. It is really, really very important. And I think, David, also storytelling in the classroom, whether it is a language classroom or in any other subject classroom, I think it also helps to create confidence, self-confidence, and also trust in others. Do you agree?
Totally. I mean, there tends to be a process in when I'm teaching. So in the beginning, when I'm meeting students, most students I work with haven't had much experience of storytelling teachers before. I think storytelling happens less often than it used to in the past. And although now it's getting more popular again. And so at the beginning, the students are listening and responding creatively to a story like The Cracked Pot, sharing their ideas. But now we could give them a story like The Cracked Pot, and we can ask them, well, would you like to retell this story? So they could learn. And when students start off retelling stories, often they are kind of imitating the teacher because it's something new. But when they do this regularly, after time, we can encourage them to retell the story, and they find their own voice, and they begin to select the story that they want to tell. And they might adapt it a lot. It might become very personal. And then after they've done retelling, then they can choose stories, maybe stories from their own heritages, or a story that they've read, or a story they've been told that they find very meaningful, a story that they want to share. And so often I get students to prepare a story, and they'll tell it in a pair. Then they might make a recording and send it to me, and I give them some support. And they work until they're ready to then share it in front of a whole group. And this builds their confidence because they're sharing something that's valuable, that they have chosen, that they've rehearsed. And there's a lot of value in selecting, preparing, rehearsing, and then the performance, and getting other students to evaluate in a very constructive way what they loved about that performance. And this, if you can tell a story, whether it's in your mother language or in the language you're learning, this really builds self-esteem and confidence.
Yes, yes, yes. David, you work with teachers, for example, during the CREST course, but you also work with students, with kids. I know you are involved in the HandsOn Project.
That's right.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit about the HandsOn Project?
Yes, the HandsOn Project is a wonderful charity. We're supporting children and teachers in Palestine. Most of the teachers we work with are in Gaza. There are also some people we work with outside of Palestine, refugees, for example, from Syria, in Lebanon and Jordan. But most of the work we do is in Gaza. And these are children and teachers who are really in a difficult situation, and we're giving them a chance to have their voice heard around the world. And it's incredible, the creativity and the determination to communicate beyond borders. And I am fortunate, every Monday I do Teach Us a Tale, where I learn a story. And I work with teachers that have done the course that you did, Palmina, other teachers from Palestine who've done the course. And Sahar Siam is one of those teachers. And yesterday, one of her students, Malak, she's a girl, 13 years old, told me a story. So she'd had some coaching from Sahar. We were one-to-one, just like this on the Zoom meeting, and then it was streamed on Facebook Live. And the energy and the confidence, she told the story of the wise Shah, like a wise ruler. Oh, what a fantastic story. And then I listened and I told it back to her. And that telling back, I'm learning it from her, is a huge validation that her story is worth telling. Again, it's shared. And then this afternoon at the World Storytelling Cafe, which is an online story sharing, there's every Tuesday we have the World Storytelling Cafe, young international storytellers for 10 to 18-year-old students. She will tell the story again, this time to a global audience. It's a fantastic thing.
David, I'm very happy to share. So maybe if you can send me the link, we can add the link to this interview so that we can see the project in action. You, the teachers, please. So David, what are your plans for the future?
I'm very excited. I had a phone call just before we met. I'm going to be doing a project. I crossed fingers because it's still the early stages, but I'm going to be doing a project where people are going to share stories with me from all over the world. I will invite you as well. And the stories will be inspired by objects in my local museum. Mm-hmm. For example, in my local museum, there are many different artifacts, but for example, there are many pots, as you could imagine, ancient pots. So I might bring a pot or a picture, probably, of a pot from my local museum. I will tell the story, for example, of the cracked pot, and I will ask the person I'm with, whether they're in Italy or in Palestine or in Brazil, tell me a story, and their story may be inspired by that story. It might be another story, it might be a folk tale, it might be a personal experience. And these events will be shared live and recorded and and there will be part of a museum exhibition. So I'm very excited about globalizing my home city of Exeter.
I will be happy to attend. I will be happy to attend, David. David, I would like to thank you so much for the interview today. And please continue telling us stories, okay?
You can't stop me.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Thank you so much for having shared your experience as a storyteller with our audience.
It's an honor to be invited. Thank you so much for talking to me and for listening.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.